It's Wednesday. Let's chat. Hi, I'm Kanan Chandran, the publisher of StormAsia.com, and this is our series of web discussions on topics that are current, that are trending. So this is our WED WEB CHAT, and today's session is on the metaverse. That's been something floating around a fair bit, and people have been curious to find out a lot more about it, to understand what it means and what it means to them and to us. So the term metaverse was first coined in the 1992 science fiction novel Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Tim Sweeney, the founder and CEO of Epic Games, describes the metaverse as a real-time 3D social media where people can create and engage and share experiences as equal participants in an economy. Now, this economy is estimated to be worth at about $21 trillion by 2030. That's a heck of a lot of zeros. Now, whether it realizes that, we'll have to see. Now, it's not surprising with that kind of money as a potential. The big elephants have crashed the party. Sony acquired game developer Bungie for $3.2 billion to be in that space. Mark Zuckerberg changed his company from Facebook to Meta to stake his claim. And Google, which developed the first augmented reality glasses, if you recall them, and then got into a lot of grief about it, and took a step back. They're also quietly acquiring things to create their own space within the metaverse. Now, with the big boys aiming to take control of the metaverse, what's left for anyone else trying to get in? Now, do you want to play in the metaverse? Can you afford not to play in the metaverse? Well, these are questions that our panelists will be engaged in the discussion today. And we've got Harish Pillay, who's the global head community architecture and leadership at software company Red Hat Inc. Harish considers himself an ethical technologist and has been in the computer industry since 1982. We've got Sergey Belov. He's the application security lead at the global cyber protection giant Acronis. Manfred Ng, who is the CEO of Monopolon. Monopolon is a 3D play to earn board game and the first virtual land and buildings metaverse. Welcome, gentlemen, to today's discussion. And I'd just like to start off by asking, how do you view the future of metaverse in your respective areas?
For me, we just changed interaction. Like before, we have used it like applications, and the application we just touch it our screen, and all like we are trying to buy or to obtain while playing in the games or somewhere like in social networks. It just were records somewhere in a company, so like who owns and runs this business. Like with the metaverse, we are changing this behavior, and we're like trying to change and move it to the VR and AR. But it's like probably most not important thing in the metaverse. What we are really changing, we are changing economy. And like how we do manage our digital assets. Now it's like not only a record somewhere in the database, but usually like it's supposed to be written and stored in a blockchain. And the future of that, it's kind of tricky question. I believe that we will use it, I believe that it will be part of us, because we have like some good experience at the current moment using blockchain, but it's still like not popular, and it's still a bit hard for even like for the companies to implement and to support any software like based on blockchain, because it's a bit expensive. A lot of questions still like are not solved, because before so if company, I know, like if you got scammed somewhere or someone, because we still like will have interaction between the real people and could be scammed. So before you just want to return a transaction, but in like metaverse you couldn't. And for companies it's a big challenge. And when like they will solve and find the right balance between like safety, security, and metaverse and blockchain technologies. So future shall be good, but we have to solve a few questions before we start.
So it sounds as if there are some real world issues that are in play in the metaverse as well, right? So you've got to address them. Okay, Harish, what are your thoughts on it?
I feel this is just another hype cycle that we're going through. So, about, I think, early 2000s, there was something called Second Life. It is still around. I remember there were many people very excited with Second Life and trying to do this, that, and the other on Second Life. Some of the things were not quite ready at that point in time, perhaps, and maybe it's a little bit more ready now. But I think one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that, from my point of view, I will not participate in any of these things if these are controlled by some central entity, whether it is Facebook or Google or whatever, because no, then you have a single point of failure, a single choke point. So unless this is fully open source all the way, which includes things like ability to fork the code and build your own space that you want to build. And there are many of these tools, many of open source projects that does the likes of a metaverse kind of thing. So I feel that is how you want to do it, because anything else you're going to be then controlled by a few. And I would say, sayonara, thank you very much. I'm not interested. I'm not going to participate. So that's where I'm coming from. But it is really about empowering people. I think there are good ideas behind it, but it's the methodology and how you implement and roll it out is what makes the difference.
Okay, so I think the way you'd like it to run, very few people would be able to survive in that environment, no? Because the majority of people just want to jump into something. They don't want to try and understand how to build it or what to do. They don't mind being led around, right?
Well, while that is a sense of reality that we have to accept, however, it is a matter of explaining to people what is it that you are giving up. The fact that you are now going to be controlled by somebody else to do whatever the somebody else says or otherwise. I'm not saying everybody should run their own, but once you have a federated means of doing this, that means, for example, Metaverse from this company called Facebook, they do what they do. And Google also creates something similar. For example, can I interoperate between them? Now, if they don't interoperate, that means there's no federation of different environments. Then, we are in that space where the WhatsApps and the Signals and the Telegrams of the world are. Each one is their own silo. So that's a problem on its own. So interoperability becomes critical. Now, if these guys give an opportunity for interoperability, my implementation, somebody else's, where we can interoperate, we can send information, messages, whatever, between different platforms. Yeah, okay, maybe that's fine. But until that happens, you're going to be locked into an environment which you have now no control over at all.
Okay. Manfred, having just heard what Harish has said, you are going to launch your game shortly, right? Monopolon. What do you think of what Harish has said? And tell us a bit about what you intend to do as well.
All right, I think first thing, what Harish just mentioned in crypto terms is something called Web 2 and Web 3. So Web 2 is where the control is controlled by like Facebook and Instagram, so where your data is given by them and they use it to advertise and they use it for basically getting revenues from there. But in Web 3, that's where the data is owned by each individual users. And of course, whatever avenue streams that comes from it is shared by every one of us. But back to the topic of what the future topic of metaverse is, I think it's a way that people can socialize, travel, and work together. But there are a lot of possibilities, I see it, and mainly I think into these three categories, which is metaverse as a product or services, metaverse as a place, or metaverse as a moment. Yeah, so for metaverse as a place, you can think of like a sandbox, Decentraland. What we are trying to come out of is metaverse as a service in Monopolon. So basically, it's a place where everyone can connect with each other, like influencers, even investors, and basically venture capitalists can all come together and use each other's connection and services. Yeah, so that's what we want to plan to do. And also having buildings and lands, virtual lands, as I mentioned in my introduction, as a place where everyone can come together.
So is there anything like the board game Monopoly,
Yes.
Is it a takeoff from that? So how does the game work?
So in fact, it's like a monopoly where you buy an NFT character. So it's maybe I explain the term NFT. It's a non-fungible token. So you buy a character where you use that character to represent you in this in this land, virtual land, which would become a metaverse, and you use that character to move around the board, and of course to get rewards from there. And you possibly buy lands and buy buildings that is in this this land. Then you can represent yourself in there. Maybe you are a company, you buy a company and you put on your company logo over there.
You've also got your digital currency for that, right? You're
Yes,
creating a digital currency. So you need to buy the digital currency, then do all your transactions.
right. Yeah.
How, and then if you make a lot, then you can convert that back into cash.
Of course, no
Is that a
problem.
simple way of describing it?
Yeah, that's basically our slogan. Yeah, building actual wealth using virtual opulence. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So no, with all of this, do you see the metaverse as a space for people to escape into? I mean, the real world is full of stifling systems and structures, very prohibitive in many respects. Whereas a metaverse, although Harish will say that it's still controlled by a few, it still maybe affords you a bit more leeway and flexibility to do certain things. Do you think that is the case, or is it just a virtual representation of the physical environment that we live in anyway?
I feel that it would be a virtual representation of the physical environment. So basically, you wouldn't need to attend meeting in person. You'll be in front of the screen, so you're just projecting this this virtual image at another place, maybe in New York, maybe it's in India. I don't know. Yeah, but you don't need to be physically there. So that saves times, and that makes everything more efficient, and that makes everything more productive.
So yeah, doesn't that raise a lot of issues in your head? A lot of alarm bells going off. Security is an issue. If I mean, a lot of these are kind of reflecting the real world issues as well, aren't they? It's just that now they've got another whole layer to play with.
Here, probably in metaverse, we're trying to change the experience and not to use like 2D, that we switch to 3D and to VR, and just probably we will feel it in a different way. But in terms of security, I think it's pretty similar. What is really changing and what we have started to discuss, and Harish mentioned, how do you like manage your assets? Like, so, okay, you're just trying to reflect yourself, or, you know, your paints and your music, like we have a lot of things. And how do you really manage inside of this platform and this verse, like what you have want to choose? And there are a lot of like challenges that we have seen like 10 years ago. For example, in instance, you want to create your crypto wallet. Crypto wallet is like part of metaverse, and you have usually two different ways. How do we have like cold wallets and hot wallets? Yeah, so like real wallet, that you have a private key, like you need to manage all the things, and if you lose it, so you lost your money like totally, you couldn't recover it. And you have as a second way, just to register somewhere, like on some website, create a virtual with your like email, password, and 2FA by SMS, and still manage your crypto wallet. And like in the second case, we have like exactly the same security issues that we have seen before, like with the typical, you know, Facebook or Instagram account. Your account could be hacked, your password could be simple. I know your phone, like your SIM card could be compromised, like, or like a lot of things. And like while building metaverse and trying to copy any of your assets, if not you, like to somewhere, the question is, how do we secure our assets, and what's the way companies will choose how like users will manage their digital assets there? In my personal view, I will prefer not to register with the email and password and by SMS. I will prefer like to have my own private key to manage these assets. Yeah, but it could be hard to explain for common users for around the world how we can use it in an easy way.
Generally, in these sort of environments, what level of knowledge do the participants have of what they're getting into? how much of the group out there can be taken advantage of?
It is open to abuse from day one. Okay, we have already seen, right? So how some of the I think the metaverse environments have had people who have been harassed and so on and so forth, right? So we are dealing with human beings at the end of the day, and if this is a pure digital manifestation of what you see in physical space, then all the problems of the physical space will find its way somehow into the digital space, whichever it might be. And it may be exaggerated in certain aspects, and maybe certain things may not be. I mean, like for example, I may not be able to punch a person in the, in a virtual environment and feel the pain, the other side feeling the pain, or my fist feeling it as I would in real life, right? So certain things may be no big deal, but certain other things may be just as bad or even worse. So the question comes back to is who would benefit from all of that? What is the benefit that we're trying to do? What are we trying to achieve from a societal perspective? Right now, I don't see anything that is useful in the short term. It may be in the longer term. But in the short term, what else can we do? Because if you want to get something like this useful for a large group of people, then every one of us should be able to participate equally. And I don't see that happening in any way anytime soon. It will be a niche, like what they say, which is a very derogatory phrase anyways, like the Silicon Valley bros, right? So those are the guys who are going to do this. Yeah, but the rest of the world don't care about them. And so that becomes something that we need to address. But having said that, there's a lot of other technologies that are catching up in terms of the usefulness, the cost factor, the recyclability of these things, the impact on the environment, and in stuff like that, which is very critical to take care of as well as we try to move into this space.
The world's in a bit of disarray these days. You've got war, you've got COVID, you've got people becoming more insular in their perspectives. Would a metaverse sort of help more people come together, or do you think existing physical systems will impose their will on the metaverse, or try to impose their will on the metaverse?
I mean, I would say that bubbles will always be there. Even in the physical space, there are bubbles anyway, right? You have your own clique, your own group of friends, your own colleagues, your own neighbors, your own family, and so on. So you have your close group. You may not have people coming in. The same thing will be replicated. We've already seen this in the online space, right? I wouldn't use the terms Web 2 and Web 3 because those things are relatively meaningless. But so when you have things like Facebook, for example, I mean, it's a bubble on their own, and a bubble within a bubble, right? So that will always be there. We can't run away from it. That's just how human nature is. 150 is the number of people whom you can keep a good contact with. And this becomes something that no matter where you are, it becomes a situation where how do I maintain useful connections and communication and interest and conversations and whatever else I want to do in a meaningful fashion for an extended period of time.
So, you talk about Facebook, even they've had issues with the real world, right? Because governments have intervened and they've been involved in a lot of activity which they maybe should not have, or they've been used in a lot of activities which is not desired. So it looks like you can't really escape the system. Does the metaverse allow a freer flow of information and provided you have the capability to participate on a more equal footing with all the other players?
So I think it's about the problem regarding governance, if you're talking about that. Yeah, so people participating and people having an equal share and equal say in whatever they're participating in. Yeah, so I think we can answer that question partially using like what Harish said in the chat, using a decentralized autonomous organization where we give power to everyone. So basically it's like a voting system where everyone votes and the majority of the votes count. So towards maybe like remove this violent action in this metaverse. So everyone votes, and if the vote go through, then these actions would be removed from the game or from the metaverse. Yeah.
Okay. So you're trying to introduce some form of democracy in that process.
But we actually have a problem, right? I mean, we are dealing with businesses running these things, right? And a business is not a democracy. Twitter is not a democracy. They are not bound by any of the democratic principles that, as a society, we hopefully are striving to. So you cannot say that, oh, I have freedom of speech on Twitter. No, there's no such. It's a business. They can decide whatever they want to do with it. You cannot impose that onto them, which is something that a lot of organizations don't seem to understand. You know, or how can they say that? Well, and it's up to them to decide what they can and cannot allow happen, or say, or whatever, right? It's not for the democratic process to decide. It doesn't work that way, unless it is not owned by a central entity, because they have their own business reasons to make it happen for their own purposes.
Yeah, correct. That's why it's a DAO. It's a decentralized organization. Yeah. So
the challenge again with DAO is that how do you know what is decentralized? How decentralized is it? Who are the puppets behind that, right? Who is managing all it? There's a significant amount. So every time you solve one aspect of a problem with a particular solution, that solution then throws up a whole bunch of other potential areas to be addressed. So how do I ensure that a DAO doesn't suddenly disappear? And now we are all stranded and we are all orphaned out of that, whatever that we are doing, right? Or it gets broken into, somebody hijacks it, for example. How do I ensure these things? And I have put all my life savings into this particular thing. It's gone.
Agree.
So there are many issues that's still pending, and we will not get to it'll be an ongoing experiment. That's how I look at it. It's a work in progress. It's a continuous work in progress.
Correct. Yeah, I do agree with Harish on that. Yeah, I feel that we are still in the early stage of the metaverse. There's still many issues that we need to sort out, like this type of governance thing, and who has a say and control over it. Yeah.
And I would also probably just throw in one more thing here. There'll be governments who won't be happy with that. The authoritarian governments, or even Singapore government for the matter, they may not like it. They may introduce rules and regulations saying, no, you cannot do this, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then what happens? I mean, technically we are a democratic society, but happening within inverted commas. But that's a problem. So countries which are not at all in that space, like Russia and China, for example, they will say, no, you cannot do this. So the interoperability portion is gone, if there was any.
Yeah, it's essentially a recreation of the real world, right?
That's right.
In a virtual space in many respects, because I think the ideology will still flow through. Or if it isn't there yet, it will catch up.
Yeah.
Right? That's usually the problem. But one point you raised there, which I think is quite important, about people putting their money into it. Now, is this something which I know big businesses are putting money into it, trying to establish a playing field for themselves? Should smaller players, should individuals also look at this as a potential way of making money, of increasing their wealth? Well, it's a gamble, of course, but is it worth it versus what's taking place in the real world?
So by like what you mentioned, by 2030, it is worth trillions of dollars. So in my estimate, by 2024, it will probably be worth around $800 billion. Yeah, according to a report on Bloomberg that I read. So definitely, I feel that it is definitely worth investing, but you don't have to put your life saving into it, because there's so much more uncertainty and into it. Yeah, but if you see all the big boys are coming in, like Electronic Arts, Blizzard, SoftBank, they are no fools. Yeah, so that if they have put in some money, in fact, a lot of money into this metaverse, and even Facebook changed its direction towards Meta, I feel that there's definitely possibility and there's definitely potential that maybe many of us couldn't see. Yeah, and that's why they have invested into it. Yeah, so I feel that maybe we could diversify a little bit of our investments and put it into something that could potentially bring a lot of return in the future. Yeah.
Okay, great. This series is part of the Jobs 20XX work in progress discussions. It's in partnership with OUE, where we look at what opportunities exist within this space for people to engage in as careers, or if they're studying as students, what should they do? How could they get into this space? So I'm just wondering, With your experience with the metaverse so far, what would you be looking for in terms of potential candidates, perhaps trying to find a place to work or form a career? Or students, what should they learn? What should they look out for when they are leaving school and entering this particular space?
I see. I think like for them, if you want to just take your first steps in metaverse and NFT, it's like good start for that. Like you just could download an app and just to look and explore like what kind of NFT now are selling, how to sell your own NFT, how to create and create your own NFT and not just draw a simple paint, have like a simple track. And why do we need metaverse and why do we have NFT? It's just another way for people to earn money and and with some kind of confirmation. This is why we like NFT and metaverse in general. Metaverse just like are using NFT usually, yeah. So like for the students, like just try to explore like what kind of NFT we have, like how does it work? Just try to make your own sign, just take a picture of that, try to even sell it. Yeah, probably like if you could spend some really small amount of money, of course it could be like scam it and or to buy something that will be much less in the price like in 2 weeks. So like don't spend a lot of money, don't spend a lot of effort on that, but try like make this touch. And this is exactly what will happen with you when you will you'll join like to any other metaverse. So it should be like a pretty similar experience for you, and you will understand like how does it work. So for you, like so you will see just an image with some digital signature, you will sell it to someone else. And yeah, I think it's a good start for students.
So you would recommend baby steps, but meanwhile keep plugging away at your studies and doing all the other things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Yes?
So
I agree with Sergey on that. I think there's many opportunities for students and this you graduates that's coming. You see there's a lot of big players like online game makers like Roblox, design software vendors like Epic Games, Adobe, social networking, Facebook, and even gaming which is last Monopolon, but there are other valves as well. Yeah, and even live entertainment. Yeah, you see sports team are creating their own metaverse and NFTs. So I feel that it's a lot of job opportunities that will be opened up. Even in Singapore, it will become the cryptocurrency hub, so-called, in the future. Yeah, we are aiming towards that. So I feel that students that go toward this direction of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and metaverse have a lot of potential and job opportunities that's coming up.
Harish, any thoughts on students and careers?
No, I think I'm always excited to see people getting into the tech space more than anything else. But does this solve world problems? Probably not. Does this waste a lot of energy? Probably true. I've been on the internet from 1986. Okay, so I've been on this space for a very, very long time, the ARPANET days. So I love these things. So, but there are certain things which I think doesn't quite make sense from my perspective. But knowing what to do, how to do is always good to do because you need to learn. And the best way to learn is to try. And so, yeah, by all means, get into the space and understand what it is. And ask yourself, is this what you think you want to do? Are you going to look back 5 years, 10 years from now and say, yeah, that was a great technology I learned, and this is how I want to do this now and work on this now. So I'm always excited to see people get into the tech space. I mean, that's the space I am in. And we really, really do need people of all kinds of skill sets. It's not just developers. It's also artists. It's also, documentation people. It's also trainers. It's also, people who are going to talk about stuff, the marketing folks, talk about technologies. And the actual builders, the hardware people. Where are the hardware guys? We need the hardware people as well. It's not everything's going to be on a screen in front of you. It's going to be probably some kind of a headgear or whatever it might be. So yeah, definitely there is a lot of opportunities there. And clearly, I would love to see more people in the tech space.
Okay, so yours is a bigger picture perspective, right?
Yeah.
And it may filter into the metaverse or whatever,
Yeah.
But I suppose you have to start it with the bigger picture in mind. Earlier, there was a question to Harish, if the environment is managed by DAO, does it make sense from your point of view?
For every problem that we identify now, and we have a potential solution, that will then lead to some other aspects that we haven't thought of, because now we opened up another door there. And so we need to be constantly reviewing it. We need to be able to say, okay, this path is worthwhile for following, or to say this path is, forget it. It's not gonna be useful now. Maybe 5 years from now. For example, Second Life is a classic example. At the time when Second Life was launched, it's only on a screen. I'm not sure how many people had laptops when it was launched at that point in time. Everything was on a big screen. So over the years, that has improved significantly. Not Second Life, but the technology around you has improved significantly. So maybe now Second Life is what was needed. I don't know. Just throwing it out there, right? So is that a way to do it? But I think at the end of the day, it's not so much whether it is managed by a DAO or anything like that. It is, do I have agency as a participant in whichever environment it is? Do I have my own agency, or am I subservient to somebody else, or the entity that creates it? Can I take my stuff out from a game that is being built and bring the asset to somewhere else? If I cannot do that, then I'm kind of stuck there, right? So maybe the solution right now is, you take whatever assets you've created in a game and then you convert it into cash, into fiat currency, and then from fiat currency you go into another one. Maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. But there are solutions, and yet there are problems.
I think we have parts of solutions right now. So we have, for example, cryptocurrency, like it could be controlled, like when you use in the right way, it could be controlled by any entity in the world. So it just works, like, and Bitcoin, like, could be controlled, and you could have some part of coins, like in a blockchain, and you can withdraw and transfer it to anyone, and like there are no like laws or rules like how it could be restricted. And this is probably most important part of the metaverse. If companies will use it in the right way, and it will be not a fake blockchain, like that's some
opportunities exist for industries to make use of the metaverse, to trial things. I'm not sure whether many industries are even looking into this opportunity. So rather than going out there and building something and then testing it in the physical environment, you do it all online, and that probably save costs, I would think, right? Is that something that is worth considering as a useful sort of platform to use the metaverse for?
If I add a comment here, there was, if you take specific niche areas, right? So there was it's an ongoing thing, I forget the name of it, but there's this thing where you immerse yourself into the 1800s. It's a history lesson. And you see what's going on in whatever environment it is, and then understanding what it is. And when you come out of it, when you get out of it, you have a different sense of understanding. Like, I think there was something very similar that was done where you don this particular headgear, and you have an environment where you are being walked into a concentration camp in World War II. And the feeling that you get to see people, video images and so on. So the learning that you get from it is to teach history, right? And so on. So if it's specific niche areas, I think there's significant advantage there. But it would initially have to be niche areas. And once you learn the lessons there, okay, what works and what doesn't work, and then you refine the technology and make it, a little bit more general, maybe that works. But I think that's the starting point. It cannot be all for, one for all and all for one. It has to be very niche areas.
Yeah. So what Harish is saying is basically small baby steps, like from this type of brain-controlled devices. Then we're moving towards augmented reality, AR. Then slowly we're moving towards virtual reality, and of course the end goal would be the metaverse. But the small baby steps first, as what Harish said. Yeah.
Okay. These small baby steps, how would you make them relevant to a larger audience? Because, I mean, the whole idea of the metaverse is everybody can jump in at some point if you have the means, right? The digital divide, is that still an issue? What's your experience like if you don't have the right gear? Do you see coming together or a diminishing of the divide because of something like the metaverse and maybe enabling more people to join this community?
Of cryptocurrency or gaming, yeah, I think definitely there's a digital divide over there. So that if you but we try to minimize this digital divide. So we made it such that there's free to play games and stuff, so that people can come in and play. Don't necessarily need to pay. Of course, they still need to have the basic facilities like the internet and stuff like that. That's the digital divide that we can't solve. Yeah, so you still need to have you need to have a browser, you still need to have a computer or a mobile device, and you still need internet to stay connected. Yeah.
Okay. Sergey, do you see issues of security coming up as more people venture into the metaverse? So you have your known actors that you deal with, right? Are you going to see a flood of new faces coming into this space, or do you reckon just like Google and Meta and the usual names are jumping into this, you will see your existing actors sort of jumping into the metaverse as well?
Yeah. So we have seen them already, like in the past few years. I think right now, like we have seen like a few companies that were hacked, like they tried to use a blockchain. This problem is, so they want to be centralized, like decentralized, and to write a blockchain to the blockchain, but they're usually using gateways, like 10, like hundreds of companies could use just only a few gateways that we have in the world to write to the blockchain, because it's kind of like expensive to manage it, so on. And some other companies in the world, they provide you like a special gateway that you could use to write to the blockchain. And what usually happening, so not these companies, so the attackers switched their approaches, and they're not trying to compromise companies themselves, like who run metaverse. They're trying to compromise gateways that helps to build this metaverse. And of course, like for criminal point of view, they want to get more money.
Yeah, adding on to what Sergey said, I think what he mentioned is those networks in blockchain. So for example, the Ethereum network, the Binance Smart Chain network, and there are many own networks that are coming up, like Matic and Polygon, or this. Yeah, so also tying up to a Harish point, if these networks fail, then basically the metaverse that we build on this network will be essentially gone. Yeah, so there's still some centralized elements to it. So what we need to do, and we need to circumvent this, is to build maybe an open source blockchain network that someone can create. Yeah, that everyone can be in there. Yeah, but it's open source, so it won't be deleted from if Binance goes down or Ethereum goes down, it doesn't get deleted. And maybe that's one way to go about it. Yeah.
So it could have many metaverses.
Yeah,
if
I
that's
think
the
that's
case,
really
right?
what it is. Yeah, that's really what it is.
Yeah. One of the terms of sustainability and the environment and everything else, what sort of a carbon footprint is the metaverse going to leave behind? What is it going to generate a lot more waste and use a lot more energy and resources?
Like at the current moment, we have a few devices like from a Meta, with Oculus, and compared like how much efforts like do you need to produce these devices and like wearable glasses. Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to the smartphones. It's kind of similar. So the issue is that in the current moment, you can buy like your phone and use it for a few years. But if you want to join to the metaverse, you need to buy a new device and upgrade like each 2-3 years. And that means we are doubling this carbon footprint like in our world. Yeah, so it's of course like not a good for ecology and for everything that we have.
And even the whole metaverse, a lot of it is built on data and servers, and you need a lot more of those to be in place, right? That's going to consume a lot more energy and add to the carbon footprint, isn't it?
It is. There are newer technologies, the ARM-based CPUs, the RISC-V-based CPUs, which have got a much higher efficiency in terms of power consumption to power out to capability compared to say the Intel or the AMDs. So clearly that would help in some of this, but until and unless these things are addressed, it'll be a mixed bag of issues across the board, all over the place. It's not going to be an easy solution. That much I'm quite sure of.
This has been quite a useful session in the fact that all three of you brought in different perspectives to the discussion. And I think, well, hopefully for the audience, you managed to see some other aspects to it rather than just, metaverse, let's go play some games in there or be somebody else or be in a different environment or travel or whatever. There's a lot of potential from the sounds of it, but there could also be many metaverses coming if people want to establish their own sort of areas for people to operate in, maybe freer, less control. But the potential, of course, is there. And I think, while many people may be jumping in now, there'll be others waiting and watching. And I'm not sure if, to some extent, the older generation will find themselves being left further away from it, because it means trying to come to terms with a whole lot more new technology, new devices, trying to understand things. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works out, how things shape up. But Sergey, Harish, and Manfred, thank you for all your views on the topic and bringing the discussion into a much livelier space and creating a lot more awareness of what's going on out there. Thanks to the audience for the questions and the comments as well. And thanks to OUE for partnering us on this series of Jobs 20XX work in progress discussions and part of the WED Web Chat.